without any need for males.
The power of
Lucy
celibacy.
Cook for the power of celibacy. To the news.
BBC News with Chris has warned that the United States will hold the Burmese military academy called the and other civilian leaders a direct assault on democracy. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has suggested that the European Union to restore the 2015 nuclear deal.
You see what's happening? Oh,
President Trump of the United States.
Could you fucking cut that out?
Close allies of President Jair Bolsonaro as the new KPT.
So we were online for about 5 seconds
political
before this
pressure on
shit
Mr.
started.
Bolsonaro,
Wow,
who's been facing the
so
prospect of an
fucking
impeachment
creative.
trial over his handling of the coronavirus. The leader of the Republican Party only criticized a newly elected congresswoman from his own party for embracing what referred to several. A former CIA officer has told the BBC he believes he was targeted by a secret weapon in Russia. 3 years ago, Mark Polymeropoulos
So they just did a whole 10-minute piece about. So again, we get jammed the fuck up as soon as they start talking about black people for 10 minutes straight while they're
scientists
talking about black
concluded
people.
that a directed radio frequency or microwave was the most likely cause.
As soon as they start talking about black people, I cannot get online.
Some post-Brexit checks.
So they're talking about all the conspiracy theories, but they won't use that term. And they're talking about all these weirdo things I've never heard of. And they're referring to, oh, you know how everybody knows about, they're talking about putting microchips in your skin and so forth. Every single person they're talking to is a white person.
This is
And the
Discovery
implication,
from the BBC
over and over,
World
they keep
Service.
mentioning
I'm Lucy Cook,
minorities.
and in my new series, The Power of,
Minorities
I'm
believe all this
exploring the
stuff.
surprising
They don't know what
animal
the fuck you're
traits that,
talking about.
at first glance, may seem
don't
like a
even inject
hindrance,
syphilis
but
in
turn
people.
out to be winning evolutionary strategies. And this one
Celibacy.
has got to take the prize for mind-blowing. A species that can reproduce without sex.
That means
It's
nothing.
the power of celibacy.
No, it's not. That's not.
Sex is a complicated business, but it's
This is
essential
gonna
to
be
life,
bullshit.
right? Well, apparently not. There are
No,
a
'cause,
surprising number
mold
of
can do
female
it.
animals that have evolved to reproduce
Fungus can do
without
it.
the need for males. How do they do it? And does it make life any simpler? My quest to uncover the power of celibacy began on the Hawaiian island of Oahu. It's 10:30 in the morning. I've just hurtled across the island, and I'm on the trail of a very special gecko called Leptodactylus lugubris, which is known as the morning gecko. This is a species that has done without men altogether. They don't need males. They ain't having sex any longer. They're just doing it for themselves.
Right.
Made my sauce authentic on a chopping board. Baby, it's spicy, be careful. Don't shake the bottle too much, be gentle. It's kinda high on the Scoville level. Don't burn your tongue, don't get it in your eyes too. I turned reality into a lucid
Spin out the sat nav. Above me loomed a jagged green volcanic ridge, like a giant dragon's back. A sign, perhaps, that the lizards were near. Then I heard a familiar growl.
That sounds a lot like Chainsaw.
Amber! Amber, behind you! I frightened you, I'm so sorry. I'm Lucy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Where am I and what is this place?
This is the University
And again,
Agricultural
reiterated
Research
that a lot of the
Station.
people, the
Most of
pharmacists
the
don't
research
even
is
want to get the vaccine.
agricultural, but they let me build
Oh,
my
that's so
lizard
odd.
experiment
Really?
here.
When did they ever take
What's
the
your lizard
vaccines?
experiment?
So I've got all these little habitats, right? And so I'm looking at the different lizards that are introduced here to see how they interact with each
What are
other.
you doing with that?
Do I do
weed
better
whacker
if I'm
thing?
with my own species or another species? Because Hawaii has no native lizards, except perhaps maybe one of the skinks. And we have these lizards from the Caribbean here, the lizards from the Indian Ocean.
Whose
So
fault
it's
is
this blank
all
slate.
that?
What's going on?
Never mind.
So Hawaii is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place to be a zoologist, isn't it? Because you're in a factory for evolution, aren't you? I mean, this is how species become new species, is by being separated.
Sex. Everything is evolution.
And the really
there's no religion and there's no sex.
We have here. Yes, I was born and raised in Hawaii, grew up catching lizards, and just kept on studying them. So you want to see some geckos?
I do want to see some geckos, yeah. Although they're called morning geckos, it's not morning as in the morning.
Morning sad. So during the day, they're not active, but they're hiding. If we lift these, we'll see a bunch of them running. But earlier, I just caught some.
Amber just lifted up some big plastic sheeting on the ground, because obviously it's nice and dark underneath. And she's got these little white cloth bags where she's pre-caught some, and I'm going to meet my...
July of 2019, shortly after Premier Kennedy was elected, the inquiry was meant to give its final report in July 2020. It missed that deadline. That got an extension to the fall. It's missed that deadline, and it's gone now through its. I think it's gone through its third deadline without issuing the final report.
All right, so he's a top forensic accountant. He's been involved in a lot of, let's call them community activities where he's got a stellar reputation. He's not considered a partisan hack. He's a credible guy, Steve Allen, not the comedian, Steve Allen, the commissioner of this inquiry about so-called anti-Alberta activities revolving around so-called foreign money fueling environmentalism. Look,
Chinese and Russian.
We clearly have foreign money fueling some environmentalism, just as we have.
It's clear because the media keeps telling us that
investment in Alberta.
So there are no First Nations people in Canada. Somebody hit the report button. There are no First Nations people in Canada protesting any energy development whatsoever. It's all funded by Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia.
And I've actually done a very detailed piece in which I went into in great detail not only the foundation, largely U.S., but some European foundations that are supporting the environmental causes in Canada. But there's vastly more money that flows into Canada from offshore or outside the country, from charitable foundations for other causes. And in fact, the U.S. government is in fact the largest funder of nonprofits in Canada from outside Canada, if you can believe that. U.S. government is hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 10 years, is what I've found. So
most of the nonprofits in Canada, that's an interesting statistic. Most of the nonprofits in Canada are not nonprofits.
Canadian
$3 million to the United Way goes to the top 10.
Seeking and obtaining international grants from large.
The March of Dimes is called the March of Dimes because for every dollar you donate, 10 cents goes to the underlying
Mr. Allen is supposed to follow the breadcrumbs and figure out, I guess, over the years, how much money has come in to Canada from foundations, I guess, like the Tides Foundation and some others that we've been hearing about over the years. I guess my problem with is that I have the impression that all this research had already been done, and that you, in fact, are one of the people doing it. And I know that Mr. Allen has contacted you as a source. So I guess what's nettlesome to me as an observer here is
I give funding from
Iran, are they trying to
Saudi Arabia,
reinvent
China, Russia.
Something that they already have? I mean, they've got the numbers.
Or
is there something else going on here that I'm missing?
Or some shit.
No, I think what's sort of driving this whole narrative is the idea that there's something
They say our cigarettes are illegal. They're not. They say our cigarettes are the biggest cause of house fires.
And males don't really do much in terms of growing populations. Press release. The press release said that the two sides had a candid and in-depth exchange of views on disengagement along the line of actual control in the western sector of China-India border areas. Both sides agreed that this meeting was positive, practical, and constructive, which further enhanced mutual trust and understanding, and agreed to push for an early disengagement of the frontline troops. They also agreed to follow the important consensus of their state leaders maintain a good momentum of dialogue and negotiation, and hold the 10th round of the Corps Commander level meeting at an early date to jointly advance de-escalation. In addition, the two sides agreed to continue their effective efforts in ensuring the restraint of the frontline troops, stabilize and control the situation along the line of actual control in the western sector of the China-India border, and jointly maintain peace and tranquility. This is Special English. As the world is still mired in the COVID-19 pandemic and China tackling sporadic outbreaks, preparations for the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics for an early disengagement of the front. Maintain a good momentum of dialogue.
Degree above the normal low of 32. The record low is 8 in 1981.
Come here, fatso.
Nothing on my wrist, nothing on my neck, nothing on my fist, it's all on my check. Don't you get the gist? I got the confidence, don't need a brand on my chest. I know what my value is. Wealthy people don't need jewelry. Look at 21 Savage and Bill Gates. The rap industry got a complex. I turned reality into a lucid dream. I turned a lucid dream into whipped cream. Cash rules, nothing around me. I only use it for paper planes, actually. I'm the opposite of Microsoft, I'm big and hard. Let that resonate, maybe a little more. I got that lyricism sprinkled with a lot of flow. I made my sauce authentic on a chopping board. Baby, it's spicy, be careful. Don't shake the bottles.
Y'all send me that. Y'all send me never did I want you. Oh Lord, me tell ya. Whoa, 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 whoa.
I want to go to Cuba and start selling canoes. Canoes and paddles. And life jackets.
What?
Or kayaks.
Take them out, bring them out dead. Westward, hit them in the head. 1 gun, 2 gun, 3 gun, 4, your 5. It's all about crime. On air, that's who that is. Yo, murder. Who the hell? Heard up, Tim West.
Is that a snail shell?
But my nigga ain't cussing, you gotta talk to these niggas. Hey, your man refill the brace, smack the bitch in the face. Hey, your man refill the brace, smack the bitch.
Soon we'll have break.
Everything is connected to the song. Yeah, it's weird. What are you talking to me? Look at the price of the jeans.
I got no time for a tease. Money is all that I breathe. I got my tricks on my sleeve. I've been tripping of a freak. Yeah, I just came out of the booth. Need to be speaking my truth. You never stepped in my shoes. Yeah, I'm pulling up in a fuel. Niggas don't know what to do. I'm taking all of the loot. Whoa, I got my fam from the bay. We can be sleeping all day. I got their blood in my veins. Yeah, I got more gold on my chain. Nigga, I'm going insane. I'm taking all of the hate. I disappear like a ghost. I keep my ducks in a row. I keep that bitch on her toes. Whoa, when you step into my zone, give me a hit on my phone. I get it over the low. Yo, pull up on your block, roll up easy, yo. Chilling with the homies makes it easier. I can sip on 40s, I can sip on this all night. I can sip on 40s, I can sip on this all night. Pull up on your block, roll up easy, yo. Chilling with the homies makes it easier. I can sip on 40s, I can sip on this all night. Hey, I can sip on 40s, I can sip on this all night. All night. Yeah. What are you talking to me? Look at the price of the jeans. I got no time for a tease. Money is all that I breathe. I got my tricks on my sleeve. I've been tripping of a freak. I just came out of the booth. Need to be speaking my truth. You never stepped in my shoes. I'm pulling up in a fuel. Niggas don't know what to do. I'm taking all of the loot. Whoa, taking it.
About to death, drag your teeth.
To be a wild rocker.
No, and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. I need.
Yeah, you know that random black guy. They ain't no.
I wonder if I have fish food. I can't remember if I gave the fish food away I had left over.
It's don't get
Where did you put fish food?
It's raw dog. You know it. On my hip.
You can keep your little six, little nigga. I run the dot. Even when I'm OT, my nigga. I run the dot. Nothing gon' change, little nigga. When I'm under lock. Tell every rapper in this motherfucking city that I run the dot. I run this bitch that track and field. Race strikes like you're not the only one packing still. Power couple stand on top of the hill like track and chill. Little niggas too young for big mass like Happy Meals. Who the best there? Chocolate blood like we don't text there. In the cut, niggas go up. It's like a check staring. Niggas said boy gon' die, but couldn't get near him. Silence ain't got no sound like a fit hearing. I said before I'm a killer. If I drop a P, you'll see this rain like yellow. We was in the East Detention Project Bounce, that's at the count. When I used to turn myself in with an ounce. This is from the time that never would be announced back in 04 when Galloway around the house. I was
laughing on my entire house.
It was playing checkmate. Bleeding out of range, we used to give you niggas headspace. Run quarter over to get you out on the next day. Blood in my hand, yo bitch, that's how I get lit. Fucking with your shorty, get my breach like He-Man. Like Thomas and Trent can't do it, like guess we can. Keep it 6, nigga, we keep 6. We can handle this like man or get us some G shit. You set tripping niggas switching colors like beasties. The money that we putting on you, what do you read with? You'll see shit. What they day ones, all I see is the snake ones. The cats I put work in their pocket and got no cake from. If a bus ain't big and no 6 bus, I'll make one. And if that shit don't come easy, nigga, I'll take some. I run the dot. Even when I'm OT, my nigga, I run the dot. Nothing gon' change, no nigga, when I'm under lock. Speed that flow. Don't go against that flow. Speed that flow. Speed that flow. Don't put that water. Speed that flow. Don't go against that flow. Speed that flow. Just jump in that water. Be that flow. Just be that flow. Jump in that water. Be that flow. Just be that flow. Don't go against it, God. Be that flow. Jump in that water. Be that flow. Just be that flow. Be that flow.
Living Mi'kmaq in Donald Trump's USFA. This week we take a summer trip to visit our Mi'kmaq relatives across the border in the state of Maine. I'm Glenn Wheeler, and this is Mi'kmaq Matters, a podcast about Mi'kmaq people, politics, and land of water.
Come back to after this one. So there's snail shells in there.
Hey. Yeah. The heartfelt shit.
I didn't even know there were snails in there. Holy shit, there's a bunch of them. So all the life in this was not dead.
I'ma make it the revenge. These cruel intentions. Not to mention, got me clenching. My chest hurt from the stress. These days I'm venting. Poetry healing these wounds that I once contained. Serenity fell, fed off these raps that I bring. These words help me escape. I say fuck the therapist. I hate mankind. I'm against go like a terrorist. In the arms of security, stolen away. That's stealing loved ones, let my soul astray. Reflect my past, so you see this life's been good. Chose correctly, even when pressure I put my hands on steel, go for rocking the slaves throw away, cause I didn't need my life.
Hey. Batman. 20 t-shirt, how you bet? Hey. I just Batman.
This week, Halibu First Nation launches
Batman. 20 t-shirt, how you bet? Hey. I just Batman 2019. I'm leaving. Fuck this shit. They know come back. Or look down. No, bro. Hey. YG back to the tracks and the crack shit. Scraps on the stack. Niggas don't love you. That's a fact. Get the Mac. No cheese. God bless me. No sneeze. Niggas see me and breeze. 40 no shit. He's got the strap to the slap. They moving like a stack. Never lack. Just rack. Put him in a box. No jack. Roll one deep. Never need a pack. Hey. Niggas know me from north to the south. Never need no one. Make my own club. Southside reach apart. That's my road. Niggas selling drugs, man. I'm in a drought. They all know I'm so stuck in red talk shit. Catch slammed with the head off the shits. No meds. Never fuck on the rent. Stay away from the feds on the streets. No bed. Hey, deep water. I trick. I snow. No slip. I swamp me dead. This day I drip. Bitch gave me hit. See my strap. They fled. Hey, I know they said I don't be shit when I was in the ditch. No pussy. I'm rich. They low. Don't switch. They saw the one bitch. See the flick of the wrist. I'm awesome shit. Talk shit. Get hit. Fake punk on me lit. I keep my stick, I let it flick just like a dick. I'm in his house like old Saint Nick. She want my dick, she know I'm sick. I ain't a grip that crack, I nip. I hit his lip if he talking shit. Fuck his click and fuck his gang. I'll hit the 3 just like I'm dang. She wanna gang that 40 I bang. If he owe my gang, them hollows stang. My shorties pang. She loves when I sing. She feels the pain. I'm in the rain. Hit a stain if that means getting paid. And this my click, you getting late. I'm in the trap, the cops did a raid. I got that work, you know it's A grade. Just Batman, you know you're rocking, man. Wire in DC. We're buying paint, man. You know you're rocking. Got my whole strip locked down, cuz. Hey. Hit him with a slug, gon' make him move slow. You know me, I'm all about my dough. Gotta make sure my boys gon' glow. They love my beat, they rate my flow. My neck is cold, it's 0 below. Big wrist gon' shoot, you know I drove. I keep my heat, I ain't talking about a stove. I'm in a trap, selling food, no fresh code. That nigga wants beef, my strap gon' blow. Every time I drop a truck, my cloak gon' grow. Main shorty told me, don't love a hoe. I should've known that she was right. Because of that, we really tight. I'll bust my strap if she gon' fight. Hoodie on, I'll ride at night. I'll show my might, never flight. 40 with the beam and E in sight. fighting, I ain't missing, I ain't slipping, never tripping, coke I'm whipping, check my waist, I'm really dripping, packs I'm flipping, niggas talking, niggas snitching, trigger finger really itch for fit, niggas that want me dead, 9 on me, a 2 in the head, these niggas run to God like Ned, check my flag, it's really red, married to the game, not newlywed, niggas watch my every move, they just wanna see me lose, these niggas lost like blues, my flow is sick, it's got the flu, hey. I make bread, just call me Dempster's inner mode, just like a denture. I am icy, looking fresher. Fuck that bitch, I'll never miss her. She respect.
Living Mi'kmaq and Donald Trump's US of A. This week we take a summer trip to visit our Mi'kmaq relatives across the border in the state of Maine. I'm Glenn Wheeler, and this is Mi'kmaq Matters, a podcast about Mi'kmaq people, politics, land, and water. Thank you for supporting Mi'kmaq Matters through Patreon or email funds transfer. We love you. Before the arrival of the Europeans, the land of the Mi'kmaq people included most of the lands of what is now known as the northeastern part of the United States and eastern Canada. From Quebec, what are now known as the 4 Atlantic provinces, and down to Maine. Though we share our Mi'kmaq tradition, the Canada-US border creates a much different political reality for our relations across that line. Indeed, as we'll hear from our guest this week, the Mi'kmaq people in the state of Maine are in an even tougher legal position than many Mi'kmaq people in Canada. But there are accomplishments too. Farm, community services, and so far, staying healthy. This is my conversation with Chief Edward Peter Paul of the Aroostook Band of Micmacs.
How much of the base do you own?
Chief, for those of our listeners who might not know very much about the Aroostook Band of Micmacs, you're just west of the New Brunswick border in, I guess the biggest town there is Presque Isle, Maine. Do you have reserve land, or as you say in the United States, a reservation, or do people live, in the general community?
Well, it's all of that. It's not reservation land, it's trust land. It's reacquired land that was ours. So we have, I think it's around 5,000 acres that we own ourselves, and it's broken up in like seven different areas. We have one of the largest parcels we have we have a wildlife covenant on it, so it's not to be for housing or economic development. We're going to leave the 1,200 acres as it is and manage it, for the forest and wildlife. And then we have another large piece out to the former Loring Air Force Base, and that's around 600 acres total. It has a decommissioned tank farm, like with these 50,000 gallon tanks, that they offload fuel on, and so we have that. And then
now,
where
as
our farm is
gunshots echo
located,
across
we have
the
a
wind
farm.
sweater reaches the wild
Our farm
northwest.
is only
Quaker puffweed, Quaker the breakfast cereal, shot from guns.
300 acres.
It's Yukon King,
swiftest and strongest lead dog of the Northwest, blazing the trail for Sergeant Preston of the Northwest Mounted Police in his relentless pursuit of lawbreakers. On King, on Huskies! Gold discovered in the Yukon. A stampede to the Klondike and the wild race for riches. Back to the days of the gold rush. With Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice, bringing you the adventures of Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog Yukon King as they meet the challenge of the Yukon. Fellas and girls, long hours at school or playing basketball, baseball, or other games calls for a hearty breakfast. Tomorrow, make yours a breakfast of delicious Quaker Puff Wheat or Quaker Puff Rice with milk or cream and fruit. Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice furnish added health benefits of restored natural grain amounts of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron. What's more, these ready-to-serve king-size kernels of premium wheat or rice are shot from guns to make them crisp and tender. They're delicious. Yes, try them. You'll say, here are breakfasts we like to eat. Quaker Puff Rice and Quaker Puff Wheat. Jack Madison and his father had gone to the Klondike with high hopes, but bad luck and hardship had dogged their activities. Their cash was nearly gone. Jack's father had become an invalid, and Jack himself had finally been forced to abandon work on his mine, the Klondike Queen. He didn't know that two men worked there secretly. Carslake and Peavy went into the mine night after night to work by lantern light. They were deepening a side tunnel.
Hold the light a little closer to the wall.
All this subterfuge and work to get more work, I don't understand.
Hey, Carslake, that rock looks different from the rest. Hold that light steady. There's color in there, see?
Uranium?
I see it. Well, what's it mean? Peavy, it means we've got gold. Carslake, you sure of it? You dead sure? Do you know anyone that savvies mineral better than I do? No, but I knew all along that Jack Madison's vein hadn't run out. I knew he would strike the mother lode if he'd kept going through the falls, but he didn't. And now we've found it. Carslake, is it a rich vein? You sure we got the mother lode? Just a minute. Hold that lantern closer, Peavy. Yeah, sure thing. Anything you say. Yeah. That all right? Fine. Mighty fine. Richer than it was before Madison lost it. It's the richest vein I've seen. Then we're rich, Carslake. We're rich. Just a minute, Peavy. Maybe you forget that this isn't our tunnel. It still belongs to Jack Madison. Oh, yeah, that's so. But we'll buy it from him, that's what we'll do. We'll buy it. He won't sell. Sure he will. He thinks this mine is petered out. He quit it, left it. He'll suspect something if we try to buy it. Chances are he'll come here and look around. He'll see where we've been working. Yeah, maybe so. Better cover the work we've done so he won't notice it. He won't do business with us anyway, Peavy. Not after the way we cleaned him on that other deal. Yeah, that. He was pretty sore about that deal. Sure he was. Who wouldn't be sore? How would you feel if someone took all your savings on a gold mine that had been salted? Well, maybe I could make him think my conscience bothers me after that last deal. Your conscience? Well, it's worth a try. I happen to know he needs cash and needs it bad. His father's a very sick man. Jack wants to take him away from here. Well, go ahead and try. Well, if Madison won't sell, I've got another plan. Well, maybe you better try that one first. Oh, I don't want to, Carslake. Why not? I've got nothing against Jack Madison. He's all right. I'd hate to see him put to death by savages. Savages? Indians. That's what my other plan will mean. I'll call him first thing in the morning and see if he'll sell out. If he won't, well, one way or the other, Carslake, we're going to have this gold.
Well,
the following morning, Peavy and Carslake went to the small cabin where Jack Madison
there in front of the
lived
gold,
with his
arguing how you're going to get it from him. That wasn't the plan.
Hello, Madison. Peavy. Mind if I step in for a minute? You're not welcome in this house. Should that goes double for me? Just a minute. Please listen to me. Talk fast and get going. It's about that deal we had, that property you bought for me and Carslake. What about it?
Well, Jack, I didn't know your Klondike Queen mine had petered out. I didn't know you'd given it up.
Oh, you did?
No, I thought you were getting rich. When Cars Lake suggested we unload some worthless land on you, I figured you could afford a loss.
What about it, Peavy?
I didn't know we were taking every cent you had.
Well, you know it now.
Yes, and I'm downright sorry. I want to do something about it.
And take back the land you sold us and return our cash.
Well, I can't do that, Jack. I'd like to, but...
But what?
Well, you see, Cars Lake has most of the cash, and he's not like me. He doesn't have a conscience. I've got to get the cash from him, and he'd never buy back the land we sold you.
No, I reckon not.
He knows it's not worth a cent. That's just it, Mr. Madison. But Jack, here's something he doesn't know. He doesn't know how the Klondike Queen has petered out. He thinks the mine is worth something. Now, if you'd sell it cheap, I could get back all you lost.
I thought you and Cars Lake were pals.
We are.
You're ready to double-cross him on our account?
Jack, it's my cousin.
You scheming polecat, it's no go.
Oh, Jack.
I did business with you once, that was enough.
You need cash, don't you?
Wants to buy the Klondike Queen, huh? Maybe I'd better have another look at that tunnel.
Son, do you think there's any chance that Peavy was sincere?
If he was, he wouldn't have brought Cars Lake here with him, Dad.
Is Cars Lake here?
Yeah. I can see him through the window. Peavy has joined him over there next to the creek.
You didn't make out at all, eh, Peavy?
Yeah, no.
I didn't think you would.
Cars Lake, are you sure you covered all the signs where we worked in the Klondike Queen?
Yeah.
Madison will probably go there to see why I wanted it.
You said you had another plan.
Yes, I have. It'll be mighty rough on Madison.
Hey, come here.
But he had his chance.
When Jack Madison investigated his mine, he found it just as he'd left it. All signs of recent digging had been removed. Cars Lake had been clever in concealing the work he'd done with Peavy. During the next few days, Jack saw nothing of the schemers. He dismissed them from his mind and devoted all his time and energy to panning the nearby stream for a meager existence. He didn't know that his enemies had left the community to lay plans for his death. On his regular route, Sergeant Preston and his great dog King came into the small community of Oxbow and stopped as usual at the home of his friend, Constable Dan Emery.
I've got something to show you, Sergeant.
Oh, what is it?
This here?
Tobacco pouch?
Yep. But it's the heaviest tobacco you ever hefted. By the way, are you heading north from here?
Why?
In that case, you're elected to deliver this pouch. Here, look.
Heavy. Gold?
Yep. Nuggets.
What's the story behind it, Dan?
Well, it was left here by a stranger. He stopped here and asked for a meal. I fed him and we got to talking. He asked me if I ever traveled north. I told him no. Then he asked if I knew of anyone who was likely to be traveling north. I told him there was hardly a week went by that someone didn't stop off here on the way to the Gold Hills. He seemed real pleased with that.
So you can find someone going north, eh? Well, I'm going to leave it to you, Constable, to find a man you can trust to take a little package up to Red Nose Pass. That's just about 2 days from here.
What sort of package are you talking about? And why do you want me to ask favors of pilgrims who pass this way heading north?
I'll tell you why, Constable. It's because you could make a sick old man and his son mighty happy.
How's that?
You ever hear of Jack Madison?
No.
Well, he lives near Red Nose. Lives there with his father, who's a sick man, bedridden.
In the Gold Hills, isn't it?
Yeah. Jack Madison owned a likely-looking mine.
I see.
I thought he was rich. I put over a crooked deal and took some money from him. Oh, I'm ashamed of it, Constable. I'm downright ashamed. I want to make good what I did. You see, I didn't know Madison's claim had petered out, and I took his last cent.
Well, golly, I don't see what I can do.
I'm getting to that, Constable. I'm a rich man now. Oh, I don't look it, but it's true. I struck it rich in the Valley of the Spirits. Now, you send this sack of gold nuggets to Jack Madison. Don't say anything about me.
All right.
And just say that an old friend sent it. Tell him there's a lot more where these came from in the Valley of the Spirits. You understand?
I guess so.
I'm trusting you, Constable. Now, don't let me down. I'll never rest unless I know that Jack Madison and his old father are well taken care of.
So, Sergeant, he went away and left me with the gold nuggets.
And he didn't give his name?
No.
Or say where he was going?
No.
I wonder if he's telling the truth.
Golly, it sounded like the truth. Why would he leave the gold if his story weren't true?
I don't know. I think I'll check up on him.
You know, Sergeant, I'd like to go with you.
Fine, Constable. Why don't you come along?
I expect I could leave town for a few days.
I don't know why not.
I've heard considerable talk about that Valley of the Spirits. But I never heard of there being any gold around that part of the country. If there is gold there, I'd sure like to know about it.
Camped a short distance from Red Nose Pass, PB was confident that his plans would work out satisfactorily. But Carslake was slightly dubious.
I tell you, Carslake, we've got nothing to worry about.
I wish I could be sure that Oxbow constable would find an honest man to take that gold up to young Madison.
Oh, he'll see that Madison gets it. Don't worry about that. If Dan Emery can't find someone to deliver the gold, he'll bring it up here to Red Nose himself. I sure gave him a story.
You think Madison will believe that the gold came from the Valley of the Spirits?
Sure he will. If I know human nature, I think I do.
Well, let me in on the rest of the plan.
The rest? I thought you savvied.
No.
Jack's been hit hard by the gold bug. When he hears about the Valley of the Spirits, he'll go there pronto.
So will the man who delivered the gold. And for that matter, so will the constable.
Let them, that's all right. They can all go there. They'll all get the same treatment from the Indians. They'll all get killed.
Killed?
Yeah. Not many people know it, but that valley is an Indian burial ground. Redskins on the watch both night and day. And if they see anyone digging, disturbing the bones of their ancestors, they'll close in fast.
So that's it.
It's a dead sure bet that Madison will go there. And as soon as he starts digging, he'll be a dead pigeon.
We'll continue our story in just a moment. For a breakfast that's delicious, for a breakfast that's nutritious, remember these three famous words. Shot from gun. Yes, Shot from Gun stands for the original, the one and only Quaker puffed rice and Quaker puffed wheat. These are the giant size, the king size grains of premium wheat or rice, shot from guns to make them bigger and better tasting. Think of it. Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice are actually exploded up to 8 times normal size. That makes them crisp and tender as nuts in November. And as Mother knows, wheat or rice shot from guns makes a deluxe family breakfast that's inexpensive, that's easy to fix as falling off a log. Just pour out a bowl full, add some fruit, and milk or cream. Talk about good. What's more, long hours at school and play call for a hearty breakfast. And Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice furnish added food values of restored natural grain amounts of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron. So how about it? The whole family will be getting off to a flying start when you eat Quaker puffed rice or Quaker puffed wheat. It's never sold in bags or both. To get the original, crisp, fresh wheat or rice shot from guns, always buy the big red and blue package with the smiling Quaker man on the front. Get Quaker puffed rice and Quaker puffed wheat. Now to continue our story. Sergeant Preston and a constable, accompanied by King, headed east to visit the Valley of the Spirits before delivering the pouch of gold to young Jack Madison.
Now, how would Sergeant Preston
A
not
mournful
know?
wind sighed through the valley. The ground was wet and soggy from melting snows. And in several places, the soft earth showed signs of having recently been turned. The entire area was studded by great boulders. It was an eerie place, especially in the gathering twilight.
What's the matter with you, King? Don't you like this valley?
I can't say as I like it any too well, Sergeant.
Certainly doesn't look as if a man could find gold around here.
It's not gold-bearing ground if you ask me.
What's the matter, King?
He's looking at that rock over yonder.
All right, King. If you want to go there, go to it, boy. Go on, see what it is.
Great guns, look at that dog travel. He's sure on the way to something. Sergeant Preston, look. Look what King found hiding behind that rock.
Hold him, King, we're coming. All right, King, down, boy.
My thunder, Sergeant, that redskin had an arrow drawn from his quiver. I bet he'd have let us have it if King hadn't acted. Don't shoot. Well, they watch.
Fish, but I can't be sure.
You dig burial ground, you'll die. You're not big, and you're not hurt.
Burial ground? Is that what this is?
That's right. What are you doing here? We guard. Other guard in valley. Guard here all time.
I see. You Indians have guards here to shoot anyone who digs in the ground, is that right?
That's right.
Then, I wonder if the man who left that gold with you wanted to do Jack Madison a favor or send him to his death.
Gosh, I'd like to know.
Certainly lied about finding gold here in the Valley of the Spirits.
He sure did. What do you think we better do?
Valley of the
Let me
Spirits.
play right into his hands.
How do you mean?
You take that pouch of gold to Madison.
Yes.
Give it to him and tell him how you got it. Then we'll see what happens.
Sergeant Preston and King remained out of sight while the constable went to the Madison cabin near the community of Red Nose. Jack and his father were wide-eyed with surprise when they emptied the pouch on a table.
Dad, it is gold. There must be a couple of $100 there.
Now, look here, Constable.
Can't you tell me more about the man who left this gold with you?
Sorry, but I've told you all I know. He was just an ordinary-looking critter. Nothing outstanding about him.
I wish you'd gotten his name.
I asked for it, but he wouldn't give it to me.
I grudge-staked a number of men when I could afford it. Maybe one of them has taken this way to repay me.
Constable, you said this came from the Valley of the Spirits. That's what I was told, Jack. And that's all I know about it.
I'd sure like to go there and stake a claim. I never heard of gold coming from the Valley of the Spirits.
Neither did I, Dad. But if this is a sample, it's worth looking into. Tell you what, Jack.
What's that?
You want to go to the Valley of the Spirits. How would it be if I went along?
Swell. Oh, the only thing is, I hate to leave Dad alone. Well, no, I can manage for a day or so. I've said all along it wasn't necessary for you to do everything around the house. I can get up for a little while at a time. You just go ahead, Jack. Go and find that Spirit Valley gold and stake your claim.
I know where it is, Jack. I can show you the way.
Cardslake and Peavy were in Red Nose when Jack and the constable bought a few supplies and then set out toward the southeast.
There they go, Peavy. Looks like your scheme is working out.
Yeah, they're carrying a couple of spades for digging.
The constable is traveling with Jack. I wish it was someone else.
Well, as long as the constable has dealt himself a hand, he'll have to take what comes.
How soon are we going to call on the old man?
We gotta wait till he gets word his son's been killed.
That might be quite a while.
Oh, we can afford to wait, Carslake. We can afford to wait.
Peavy and Carslake waited in the community of Red Nose during the week that followed. And then Sergeant Preston came into town. He stopped at the cafe, inquired about the way to Madison's cabin, and then pushed on.
All right, boys, what's going to happen?
The plotters hurried to the same cafe and talked to the bartender.
Joe, tell me, what was that he said about Jack Madison?
He said he had him on his horse.
If that's the case, his head and face were covered. I wonder if something happened to young Jack.
I got the idea that the Mountie found young Madison dead.
Oh, the poor critter.
Peavy, I'm sorry for Jack's father. This'll hit him mighty hard. Maybe we should go and call on the poor old man.
Good idea, Carslake. Maybe we can do something for him. Maybe we can help him out in some way. Let's go to his place right away.
That's not suspect at all.
Oh, Madison, you're up and around. Feeling better? Yes. What do you want? Madison, Carslake and I want to talk to you. We heard that you... I reckon you must have heard that my boy was brought home.
Yes, we did. And we're mighty sorry, Madison. Mighty sorry.
Haven't you? Madison, I hardly know where to begin. I know you hate me for that swindling deal. No, I don't hate anyone anymore, Peavy. Glad to hear that. Yes. That's my boy over there under the blanket. You want us to go to the North Ridge for the coroner? Sergeant Preston will let the coroner know. Oh, I wondered where the Mountie gone.
Madison, Peavy and I swindled.
Money don't mean much. Nevertheless, you've got to have cash to live. I don't suppose Jack located a gold mine where he went.
No. Look here, Madison. Maybe this is a poor time to talk business, but we've got to work fast. There's a newcomer in town. Now, I can unload that Klondike Queen on him.
What good's the Klondike Queen?
The newcomer don't know that it's worked out.
Carslake and I want to return the cash we swindled you out of.
Why don't you buy back that no-account land you sold me and my boy?
There's no tunnel on that land, but the Klondike Queen really looks like something.
You want to buy it?
Yes. You see, we can resell it right away.
But it's not mine to sell. It's Jack's.
Well, you're Jack's only relative, aren't you?
Yeah.
Then the Klondike Queen is yours. That is, unless your son left a will giving the property to someone else.
Oh, Jack never had a will.
Madison, I have $1,500. That's more than we took away from you.
It's hard for me to think of business, Carslake.
And I realize that. But the fact is, we've got to get the tunnel right away to take advantage of the chance to sell it to the newcomer we mentioned. If we wait, we may miss the chance.
Well, I reckon I may as well take your offer.
That's good judgment, Madison.
We'll have to have a witness, won't we?
Well, I'll go and get some men from the cafe.
And while you're going, Peavy, I'll get the papers all ready.
Good. I'll be back in a little while. Come on with me, Carslake.
See you later, Madison.
Yes, I'll be here.
Big Jim Madison watched through a tiny window until Peavy and Carslake were out of sight, and then...
You can come out now.
Sergeant Preston came from a small woodshed at the rear of the building.
Heard them, Madison. Easy enough to see through their plans.
Yes, those old red buzzards. They didn't wait long to pounce on Jack's property. You said I should hear what they had to say and be agreeable.
That's right. We can come out from under that blanket now, Jack.
Good. Lazy job being a corpse, but I don't like it.
You'll have to resume the role of corpse when Peavy and Carslake return as witnesses, Jack. Meantime, we'll get a bill of sale ready.
Those poor cats. They knew they couldn't buy it from me, so they planned to have me killed, figuring they'd deal with Dad.
I wonder why they want that worked out, man.
That's what I want to know, Dad.
And that's what we're going to find out.
It was about an hour later when Big Jim saw Peavy and Carslake returning with men who would act as witnesses to the exchange of property. Jack resumed his position beneath the robe on the bunk, and Sergeant Preston returned to the woodshed. When four men entered the cabin, Big Jim was apparently alone with the body of his son. He showed the bill of sale he prepared. When the signatures of the witnesses had been fixed to the bill of sale, Peavy and Carslake left Big Jim and went with the witnesses to celebrate what they considered a smart deal. The following morning found the plotters at the Klondike Queen. They went to work removing the worthless dirt they'd used to conceal their precious discovery. They shoveled furiously without pausing to rest. Sweat rolled down their faces. In the light of several lanterns, their eyes burned with eagerness to reach the mother lode. Finally, Carslake threw down his spade.
We've got it, Peavy. There's the load.
Gold. Gold, Carslake, and it's ours.
All ours.
A fortune if it's worth a cent.
Well, Madison will be fit to be tied when he hears the list.
We'll just tell him that the deal I counted on fell through. So we decided to come back and looked at the tunnel over and found this load.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe we'll give him a little more cash, just to show him how generous we are.
Did you say, gentlemen?
What the...
Sergeant Preston.
What are you doing here?
I wondered why you were so eager to buy the Klondike Queen. You knew there was gold here. You couldn't deal with Jack, but you were sure you could deal with his father.
Pretty smart, aren't you, Mountie?
You planned to murder Jack Madison.
Try and prove that.
You sent him to the Indians' burial ground.
We didn't send him there. He went on his own hook.
You knew he'd go there. Come in here, Constable.
Constable? Yes. I'm right here.
You here?
This the man who left the pouch of gold with you?
He's the one, all right. You went with Jack Madison to hunt gold in the valley.
That's right.
All right, Sergeant Preston. Suppose you're right. What are you going to do about it? We've bought and paid for this tunnel. We've got a bill of sale here to show it.
Perhaps that bill of sale won't mean much when the truth is learned.
Who's going to tell the truth?
I am.
Guess again.
Peavy, put that gun down.
Down your life. Take the money for weapons, Carslake, and then the constables. We're taking no chances on losing this deal.
Don't try it, Carslake.
Go on, do as I tell you. We're going to herd these two in one of the old tunnels and leave them there. We'll seal them in with blasting powder.
You can't get away with murder.
You'll see what I can get away with.
King was watching the scene from 20 yards away in the tunnel. The mighty dog was tense and trembling with eagerness to attack the man who held a gun on his beloved master, the man who laughed so tauntingly. But King was restrained by Jack's firm grip on his harness.
Gun away, Preston. Just what'll you do, huh?
Peavy, I hoped you'd threaten me with the constable as a witness. Now we have a charge that'll put you two in jail.
Hey, King!
King was waiting for that. He raced past the constable and Sergeant Preston, leaping beneath the gun and striking the plotter with overwhelming force.
No. Let me up. Don't let that dog get me.
All right, King, I have him covered.
I had a hard time holding him.
Jack Madison, you!
You bet it's me. King and I were back watching.
Get up, baby.
Get out of my tunnel.
It's our tunnel. We bought
You
it.
bought it from my dad. It wasn't his to sell. I'm alive, so that deal is void. Now get out.
You can't get away with this, Jack. You can't get away with it, I tell you. We'll fight this through the courts.
You'll have a fight in court, all right, Peavy. But you'll be fighting for your freedom. And you can't win. You can't win because Constable Emery and Jack Madison both witnessed the way you pulled a gun on me.
And if you ask me, Peavy, we can make that charge stick. Ah, that dog. If that dog hadn't come here, we'd have gotten all three of you.
If King hadn't been on hand, Peavy, we'd have used a different method. You couldn't win. Yes, King? The case is closed. In just a moment, Sergeant Preston will give you a preview of Friday's adventure. Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice are never sold in bags or both. To get the famous ready-to-serve breakfast cereals, the original, crisp, fresh wheat or rice shot from guns, always buy the big red and blue Quaker packages. The packages with the smiling Quaker man on the front. Get the one and only delicious Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice.
And afterwards, wash the dishes.
Fellas and
with palm
girls,
olive,
you too can help through your Red Cross. So give a dime, a quarter, or more if possible. Yes, get whatever you can to the 1949 Red Cross Fund. This year, thousands of boys and girls like yourselves will need help. I can't begin to tell you all the things the Red Cross does, like helping people in fire and flood areas, and in dozens of other fine services. So give through the Red Cross, the heart of America. These radio dramas, a feature of the Challenge of the Yukon Incorporated, are created and produced by George W. Trendle and directed by Fred Flowerday. This story was written by Fran Stryker. The part of Sergeant Preston is played by Paul Sutton. They are brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the same time by Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, the breakfast cereal shot from guns. Listen Friday when Sergeant Preston and Yukon King meet the challenge of the Yukon in the Caribou case. When a big dog tried to pick a fight, King turned tail and ran. When I finally learned the reason for what seemed to be a cowardly act, I realized that King's instincts were more reliable than the judgment of any man. Be sure to hear this exciting adventure Friday. For a delicious hot breakfast, eat Quaker Oats. The giant of the cereals is Quaker Oats. Yes, the giant of the cereals is Quaker Oats. Delicious, nutritious, makes you feel ambitious. The giant of the cereals is Quaker Oats. Say, boys and girls, do you want to be a star someday in sports and activities? Then start on good Quaker Oats breakfast tomorrow. Because nourishing oatmeal gives you more growth and endurance than any other whole grain cereal. Still less than 1 penny a serving. Quaker and Mother's Oats are the same. This is J. Michael wishing you goodbye, good luck, and good health from Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice. So long. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Around Garden City and in the territory on West, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of gun smoke.
BBC News with Chris Sparrow. The party that won last November's election in Myanmar, the National League for Democracy, has called for the release of Aung San Suu Kyi. Ms. Suu Kyi and other leading politicians were detained by the military in a series of raids during a coup on Monday. Her whereabouts are unknown. Reports from Myanmar's main city, Yangon, say there does not appear to be any significantly increased levels of security on the streets and no mass protests. A Moscow court is due to decide whether a suspended sentence issued 6 years ago to the Russian dissident Alexei Navalny should be converted into an actual prison term. Mr. Navalny was detained 2 weeks ago when he returned to Moscow from Berlin. His return has triggered mass protests. Congress in Brazil has elected close allies of President Jair Bolsonaro as the new heads of the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. The results ease the political pressure on Mr. Bolsonaro, who's been facing the prospect of an impeachment trial over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The leader of the Republican Party in the US Senate, Mitch McConnell, has strongly criticized a newly elected congresswoman from his own party for embracing what he called loony lies and conspiracy theories. Mr. McConnell did not mention Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene by name. The former CIA officer has told the BBC he believes he was targeted by a secret microwave weapon in Russia. 3 years ago, Mark Polymeropoulos woke up in a Moscow hotel room, unable to stand, and has never fully recovered. US diplomats in Cuba have reported a similar experience there. Environmentalists have welcomed a new British government report linking the financial state of the country with the natural world. The report's authors make the case for incorporating what they call natural capital into assessments of national economic well-being. BBC News.
Many thanks indeed for the latest. Hello, welcome to Newsday with Lawrence and Claire. Zimbabwe in just a moment, then a look at the COVID situation in Eswatini. Alan Kasuja asks why CAR is roiled by civil strife, a kind of a stand-back deep dive into the history of that country, and also why green paint and wood grain could help you if you're working from home, like Al Ross, who's here with the sport as well in about 10 minutes' time. That's Newsday.
Or green color paint.
Let's start in Zimbabwe as warnings of a moral catastrophe over the availability of coronavirus vaccines in poorer countries grow. Zimbabwean psychiatrist Dr. Dixon Chibanda says it's vital that Zimbabwe gets vaccines urgently. Now, he's behind a project called the Friendship Bench that trained grandmothers to help other women in their communities cope with their mental health. In this pandemic, but it's been going for quite some time, actually. I'm delighted to say Dr. Chibanda joins us now. Welcome to Newsday.
Good morning. Thank you.
They're going to get back on track to vaccinate the majority of Canadians by September. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as today is the first day of Black History Month in Canada, I would like to take a moment to recognize the outstanding achievements of the Black community here in Canada and around the world, and to remind the House that I, as Procurement Minister, remain committed to diversity in procurement, including by reaching out to the Black community. In terms of the question being answered, I'm pleased to say that we have vaccines en route to Canada and being deployed across this country on Monday and Tuesday of this week. And we will continue to bring vaccines into this country to meet our quarterly target of 6 million vaccines. And then
the bait and switch.
The contact tracing system now finds around 95% of
an issue in your country, isn't it? Access to that kind of medical attention.
Yeah. So fortunately, I did not need oxygen, but quite a lot of other people out there who may need oxygen may not get the oxygen. And the other challenge as well is most people don't know when to go to a health facility. And the advice that I give to people after going through COVID is keep a pulse oximeter at home and use that to measure your own oxygen saturation, and then you will have a more objective way of assessing whether it's really time for you to go in or not.
Very sound advice. And all of this, you know, the mental impact of this, I mean, you've gone through it yourself, and you know it's having an impact worldwide. Now, you set up this friendship bench idea 10 years ago. Talk to us about it and how you feel it can help Zimbabwe recover from this psychologically.
This is not Zimbabwe.
So the friendship bench, very briefly, is a brief.
Many people waiting for the vaccine, many people who want the vaccine, but we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting, and the government keeps offering the same response that we really will be on track to do everything that needs to be done to make sure that eventually, by September, we have herd immunity in this country. I should add that the so-called intelligence unit of The Economist magazine, which is considered a very, very objective, credible group, they have done their own assessment, and they say based on current patterns, and of course the patterns could change, based on current patterns, Canada will not have herd immunity until late in the spring of 2022. Naturally, we hope the pattern changes. There are ways to change the pattern. Canada could start approving other vaccine makers, and if other vaccines are approved, that would definitely give us a leg up and a much better opportunity at achieving the outcomes that the government is talking about. The only way that we'll know whether or not the government is telling the truth is the future, because based on what's going on right now, naturally the situation is very, very dire as of now. And as of now, on a per capita basis, the amount of people that we have vaccinated compared to not just a couple of countries, but compared to many other countries, does look rather poor. So let's hope this ramps up. Let's hope we do get more vaccines approved and more vaccines in this country in the next couple of months. Seamus O'Regan is representing the Liberal government in this particular piece of question period, responding to Candace Bergen, who is the deputy leader of the opposition, the Conservative Party of Canada, and it's about Canadian jobs in regards to oil and gas.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 pipeline that feeds Ontario and Quebec from the U.S. is vital to ensuring jobs in Canada and our energy security. It's essential for keeping thousands of jobs in both Quebec and Ontario, as well as literally keeping the lights and heat on in both of these provinces. It also provides all the jet fuel for Toronto's Pearson Airport. Its importance to Canada cannot be overstated. What is the Prime Minister doing to ensure that Line 5 is not cancelled?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take this issue very seriously. Line 5 is vital to our energy security. It supplies Imperial, Shell, and Suncor's refineries in Sarnia. It supplies Suncor's refinery in Montreal and Valero's refinery in Lévis, Quebec. It delivers 66% of the crude oil consumed in Quebec. It also supplies propane to hundreds of thousands of homes in northern Michigan. Businesses and refineries in that state depend on it. I can assure this House we are looking at all our options. Line 5 is a vital pipeline for Canada's energy security, and we support it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that wasn't the Prime Minister, and that didn't sound like a very comforting answer. Line 5's survival is not an option. Canada's largest airport needs it. Farming and industrial sectors need it. And our economy, already suffering from the pandemic, cannot afford to shed any more jobs. Now, the Prime Minister has a choice. He can stand up for Line 5's continued safe existence or allow thousands of jobs to disappear and leave millions of Canadians out in the cold and the dark. When's he going to do his job and take real steps to ensure Line 5 and our economic future?
As I said, Mr. Speaker, we take this issue very seriously. Line 5 is vital to our energy security, and in defending Canada's interests with any country, we take a Team Canada approach, just as we did very successfully with NAFTA. On Line 5, these are improvements to modernize an existing piece of energy infrastructure. It's irresponsible. It serves no one to conflate that with other issues, but I can tell you on this side of the House, we are working responsibly, diligently to support our oil and gas workers, keeping existing treaties in mind, protecting Canada's energy and industrial infrastructure.
And the third piece of audio we have on What's Hot in Audio today is the one and only Tony Bennett.
I don't care, my love waits there.
Was that the beginning of the day? Did he die
In
or something?
terms of the severity of the second wave, we've seen great concern everywhere, but obviously in South Africa, about the so-called South African variant, just one of the unpleasant mutations or variants that we're seeing in the coronavirus. Now, we've been hearing a lot from South Africa about how that's responsible for huge strain on health services. Do you assume that the same is going on in Eswatini as well, that you're seeing this variant, and are you going to learn about fighting that variant as well?
So you're absolutely right. This is an assumption, and currently I don't believe the lab facilities locally are able to specifically type the variants. However, the increase in transmission and the increase in fatality rate are likely to be due to a more aggressive variant, but I can't absolutely determine which that is at present.
No, sure. But listen, best wishes to you, your team, and also your partners on the ground in Eswatini as well. Andy Kent, who's the leader of the EMT, the emergency medical team that has arrived in Eswatini to try to help with the health service response to COVID-19. Many thanks indeed to Andy.
Newsday, BBC World Service. Lawrence and Claire with you. Thank you for joining us. Now, we've covered the Central African Republic a great deal over the last few weeks following the contested election, the siege of the capital by rebels, and the hundreds of thousands who fled the fighting there. But standing back a bit, what exactly is behind all of the unrest? That's what Alan Kasuja is taking a look at today on the Africa Daily podcast. Here he is to bring us up to speed.
Since the presidential election in the Central African Republic at the end of December, thousands and thousands of people have fled across the borders. To Cameroon, for example, more than 5,000 refugees have arrived there in the last few weeks, and another 5,000 people have fled to Chad, and the number in the DRC are even bigger. More than 75,000 people have crossed the Mbomwa River. So why are so many people leaving their homes in the CAR? As you can imagine, it's not a simple story, not even one that begins with this election. No, it goes way back. So I gave Clement Diroma a call. He's a journalist in the capital, Bangui. And he told me that if I wanted to understand what's going on now, I had to go back to 2003. That's when former General Francois Bozize had seized power and was running the country.
Yeah, so he took power at that time, and he stayed in power for about 10 years before being kicked out of it. In those 10 years, he struggled to get the country back on his feet and to get it out of a constant war situation with multiple humanitarian crises. Some say that he was a good president at the time, but he had a lot of critics. And during that time, armed groups gathered strength.
The evidence of battle is clear. This bullet-scarred building is only a short distance from the heart of the capital, Bangui.
And Bozize ended up being kicked out by a Seleka rebellion, and he had to flee for exile.
Where are we going with all these barbarians who are blocking us here? They've cut our phone networks, they're killing us, raping us, they're looting us. They're not allowing us to live. They've taken the state hostage.
And once the mainly Muslim Seleka forces controlled the capital, well, they were calling the shots. The country was theirs to run. But in response, other militias, like the Christian anti-Balakas, began to form, and they were primarily attacking Muslim areas. So how did this play out?
At the time, armed groups were still a bit everywhere, and the country was a very complex political transition period and a few presidents, but none of them were able to really bring back peace and hold on to power. Bozize was accused by the international community to support anti-Balaka armed groups that fought the Seleka rebellion just a month after they took power in a war that left thousands dead.
The vigilantes have just left the village. Now it's time for the Muslims to bury the dead.
You can still see the humanitarian consequences now, but eventually some kind of stability came back and the elections were able to take place in 2015.
The 2015-16 elections were held, and Touadéra was elected president for the first time on the promise to unite the country, a promise that Bozize had made as well, but failed. Touadéra also promised to disarm the rebels. Did he make any progress at all?
Well, it seems like he did for a while. There was a peace agreement in Khartoum in 2019 that a lot of rebel groups, at least the main ones, signed. But this agreement was broken a few times. Even though there was disarming programs, lots of involvement from the UN, this agreement did not really hold.
So the ceasefire agreement did not hold with the rebel groups, and then elections in 2020 approached. Everything changed, is that right?
The situation was not completely peaceful in the country after this peace agreement because a lot of armed groups broke it, the National Army broke it. I mean, everyone accused everyone of breaking it a few times. And then the 2020 elections, just 1 year after this peace agreement was signed, approached. And then a lot of rebel groups in the country, the main ones at least, decided to unite and to try and take power and try to stop the elections.
Fast forward to late last year, the country is just getting ready for the presidential election, and these rebel groups, some of whom have been sworn enemies for years, come together. And they call themselves the CPC, the Coalition of Patriots for Change. And what's uniting them? A desire to stop the election. So, did it work?
The elections were held, but there was a lot of issues. They stopped the election in about half of the country because those rebel groups with this coalition, but even before, are in control of 2/3 of the Central African Republic. So half of the country couldn't vote, and there were attacks everywhere weeks before the election. So it was a bit of a chaos, really.
So the election went ahead, and even though so many people weren't allowed to vote, President Touadéra was announced as the winner. But that didn't draw a line under the rebels' attacks.
Today, a state of emergency in the Central African Republic as rebel attacks escalate.
Even as the election results are being confirmed, this coalition of Patriots for Change, these rebel forces, began to surround and siege the capital. There were attacks on the outskirts, and everyone was holding their breath to see whether another president might be overthrown. But it wasn't to be. The CPC were pushed back. Vladimir Monteiro, spokesperson for the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission, MINUSCA, explains how the capital was protected.
The peacekeepers, the force, the police, as well as the military from the Central African Republic were able to repel that attack. And since last Wednesday, the situation is calm, although there is a kind of fear from the people. And as I said, it's the first time we have a coalition of ex-Selekas and anti-Balakas together with the former president.
So the United Nations are asking for more support from other countries to bring about peace in the Central African Republic. But did you notice the name he mentioned there? Bozizé? If you remember, he was the president until 2013. The descendants of the militias that overthrew him are part of the CPC coalition, but people seem to be suggesting that he's working for them. I asked Clement whether their agendas have aligned.
Is very much accused by the international community, by the government, of backing this coalition, of being behind, gathering armed groups, because it's really hard. They don't agree with each other. So former President Bozizé is accused of backing all this, and he came back in the country about a year ago. He came back to rule for the elections, but his candidacy was denied because he's accused with an international arrest mandate of backing the anti-Balaka groups at the time in 2013. And does Bozizé undermine the President Touadéra authority? It's hard to say as well. If Bozizé is behind all those armed groups, like the international community and the government says he is, then he tried to undermine the authority and he tried to take power, basically.
Just part of today's episode of the Africa Daily podcast, as you heard, which tries to answer the question, why are people fleeing CAR? If you'd like to find out the answer and listen to more of that, you can go to bbcworldservice.com/Africa Daily or search for Africa Daily wherever you get your podcasts from, and you'll find the episode there in full.
Headlines, quick reminder, day after the military coup in Myanmar, the party that won last November's election has called for Aung San Suu Kyi to be freed, and a court in Moscow will shortly decide whether to convert a suspended sentence given to the Russian dissident Alexei Navalny into an actual prison term. And we'll be hearing from Moscow a little later in the programme. If you stay tuned to the BBC World Service. Here's Alistair Ross with the sport.
And Liverpool's defence has been the main focus in the final few hours of Europe's transfer deadline day dealings. Manager Jurgen Klopp revealing that Cameroon's Joel Matip has been ruled out for the rest of the season with a ligament injury.
I got a preview of coming attractions earlier today, and it's a very, very important topic. Shane, thank you so much for doing what you're about to do.
Oh, thank you. I think it affects more people than we realize, myself included. So we started this on the shift. We started this conversation with Elijah Pitzkalny. He's the young man who rode his bike from Saskatoon to Vancouver. And we also had contact from one of our listeners named Derek, who's up in Edmonton, and said, "Hey, opioids, friend of mine, story. Can we share some of this stuff? It matters." So in trying to be a good sort of listener to God or the universe or wherever that lands with everybody, we did. And then we got to this point where we supported Elijah and his bike ride. He finished the bike ride on Sunday. And tonight is the first night that we are going to begin in our conversation around the harm. He did Cycle to Stop the Harm, and we gave full credit to Elijah for inspiring the conversation that begins tonight on the shift. And Garth Mullins joins us to talk about the harm, opioid deaths. Garth Mullins is a former heroin user with methadone and all those pieces of the puzzle. He, is safe and healthy in his life, but he's still an addict in that way. And he talks about what it's like to be an addict and who is an addict. And that's the part. Who are the users, and how these people are hiding in plain sight. And some of the pieces of this are absolutely mind-blowing to me. I had no idea. I went into this conversation completely blind and had no idea what addiction looks like. I had no idea what even just users look like, because I've never been a drugs guy. It's just never been my thing. And if I can, Chuck, I'll play the clip that we had from last night. It'll take me 1 second to bring it up here. I can deliver it from my studio right to you guys. I'll play this clip. This is about a minute of what he had shared, what we shared last night from Garth, that is coming up on the shift in a little bit.
I guess I was a teenager, and I'm middle-aged now, so that was a long time ago. And I was a really alienated kid. There was an adult that I was in the care of, not in my family, but that is the kind of person that should not be around children. And I think I just got somehow off track when I was under the age of 10, and just got outside of my own family and classmates and society, and I was just like a ghost in the world, and I was just like outside of everything. And then at some point in my teenage years, I started drinking and doing all the poetry writing drugs that you were talking about earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I'm taking a hammer and I'm trying to kill this feeling, and I'm whacking away at it. And then I do heroin. And I just find, there's not a hammer, there's just a beautiful little switch. And you just switch off that howling alienation, this screaming ghost cry in your ears for as long as you can remember is suddenly quiet.
It's a conversation that
you're just gonna leave it out there.
Honestly, I feel emotional even sharing it. So just to share that's how important I've learned that this conversation is. It's a conversation that I beg everybody hears. I ask everybody to do it. And so,
Shane, can you explain to me why here it is in 2021, we live in a relatively small country in terms of population. In all of these towns we talk about, how everybody knows everybody. Why do we still have this ridiculous urban myth, this legend that has absolutely no connection to facts? This nonsense that the only people who have problems are the people who we feel horrible for, we feel pity for, that we see struggling just to maintain any kind of balance at all, stumbling around in the inner cities of this country, that those are the only folks who have a problem with opioids. We feel for them, but the point is we feel for everyone. And I just do not understand. Maybe you can help me with this. I've got about a minute left here. Why do people fall in love with this notion that opioids are the exclusive domain of the so-called street people?
Well, it comes to, for me, as a words guy, it's them, right? When it can be them, they have the problem, you know, it's them, the homeless people or whatever, that it's not me, it's not us. And so it's easier to create that separation. We feel better about it. And at the same time, when it is us, we're terrified to ask for help. We don't know how to do that. The shame gets in there. The fear of looking bad gets in there. You know, the hurt's so brutal. I wish I had a better answer. I wish we all did.
I don't mean to be brutal about this. I really don't. But many of us know people who are not street people, who have opioid problems, and just as a function of business, does anyone listening to this really believe that the international cocaine cartels would have any kind of business model if they were relying only on the street people? I'm not trying to be cold-hearted about this at all. I'm thrilled that you're doing this. That's why I said I don't want to do any preamble. I want you to get as much time as possible. So I'm thrilled that you're doing this. It's great education, great public education, and it's great broadcasting. By the way, the guest you have is also just an outstanding communicator. So folks, please, no matter where you've been on this particular issue, you will learn so much by staying with the radio station that you are listening to right now. Shane Hewitt is next with The Shift. I'm Charles Adler. Thank you, Canadians, for making me the luckiest person on earth. I'm Charles Adler tonight.
What do you eat most nights?
One of the things that came up repeatedly in my interviews was that it's so important for people to have a space just for them.
Right.
Maybe it's like a tabletop. Maybe it's a shelf. It doesn't have to be a lot of space, but it has to be yours. And I think having the spaces where you can be on your own, spaces where ideally, and you can close a door and have really some time and thought to yourself.
Just one pack of Sylvania Blue Dots, he'll give you a free copy of Sylvania's new flash guidebook called It's Easy to Take Better Flash Pictures. It's a 32-page, lavishly illustrated book that will help you take the best pictures ever. So remember, this Thanksgiving, don't be caught with an empty flash gun. Pick up your Sylvania Blue Dot flash bulbs today. Gunsmoke. Produced and directed in Hollywood by Norman Macdonald, stars William Conrad as Matt Dillon, U.S. Marshal. The story was specially written for Gunsmoke by Marion Clark, with editorial supervision by John Meston. Featured in the cast were Vic Perrin, Barney Phillips, Lawrence Notkin, and Ralph Moody. Harley Bear is Chester, Howard McNear is Doc, and Georgia Ellis is Kitty. This is George Walsh inviting you to join us again next week when CBS Radio presents another story of the Western frontier. When Matt Dillon, Chester Proudfoot, Doc, and Kitty, together with all the other hard-living citizens of Dodge, will be with you once more. It's America growing west in the 1870s. It's Gunsmoke.
the day. How do you say, what time would you like to see him in Chinese? 明天见。
明天见。
You're listening to China Plus Radio, connecting you with China and the world.
Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. The Chinese president met with the leaders of the country's non-communist parties ahead of Spring Festival and representatives from the All China Federation of Industry